Hello again, and welcome to the corner studio here in my garage. And I see from the high-tech teleprompter here, it is indeed time for another episode of Friday Evening Camera Talk. This is number 72, and first thing I want to do is the What's in the Bag segment for tonight. So let's roll that and we'll be right back. Hello again, and I'm out here shooting a What's in the Bag segment because we've got a couple of items that came in. Need to get them right into the kit as soon as we can and start figuring them out. First things first, we've got our fine Japanese denim bag here with something inside it. I'll pull this one out though first. This is a WANDRD bag, and if it looks a lot like the 9L that I introduced on the channel a while back that I used with the Nikon Z8. This is a 6L, and we're planning to use it with the Z50ii. And you can see it's got enough space in there. I've already put the camera in and sized this bag, and it's got enough space to hold the Z50ii with a lens on it. And we're going to configure this thing, and I'll bring it back on the channel and show how we've set it up. But we're trying to figure out how much more gear can you hold in this with the Z50ii. What kind of a kit can it make? I think it's enough for a second lens or maybe the ceramic microphone. Same build quality as the other one. I think this was $139. It got this at Kenmore Camera. The other item here, this is a giant lunchbox. If you got twin school kids, you send them with this thing. It's an f-stop bag, and it's a padded insert basically. We bought it to use possibly with the backpack, but as soon as it came in, it was pretty obvious that the backpack that we were going to use it in wasn't big enough. And you can see the price there is $79.99. And what we're thinking now is, I still like this, and it's a good build. We're thinking maybe when we go out to the field, if we want to carry an extra lens or an extra camera body in here or whatever, this could kind of be an overflow bag and not something that we want to carry on our back when we walk further afield, but we just keep a little bit of gear in here so it's not clanking around in the vehicle. But we're still trying to figure out the end game on this one, because like I said, it was too big to fit into the backpack that we had in mind for it to go in. So I think we'll find something to do with it. Appears to be a nice build, and we'll get back to you on the channel as soon as we know more about these bags and we've gotten them set up the way that we want. So back to the main segment. And as you know, if you watch the channel frequently, sometimes the What's in the Bag segments, I shoot those at different times when gear comes in, and sometimes the production value is a little lower than my typical standard, and sometimes just whatever I'm wearing, if I've been working around the house or whatever I've been doing, and I open a box and to get stuff out, and I want to get it into our kit as quick as I can, and I'll dash out here and get the segment shot so that I can start using it. But anyhow, here's where we are. We're going to be working on talking about bags, and I'm going to show you the WANDRD bags that I have, all bought with my own money, and how I'm using it with the Z8 and the new Z50ii. We'll get to that soon. We've got some housekeeping to work through, and I tell you, there's a lot of stuff going on with Nikon here lately, and I'm not going to wade in up to my neck with opinions about a lot of stuff, but Nikon's rollouts, they've had the 35 1.2, which that's a large lens, it's expensive, and as far as how it would apply to what I do, it doesn't. So I don't really have an opinion about that. I'm sure it's very fine. My guess is, as a video person, that's probably a slightly more photocentric lens than I would be interested in. They've got the new 28 to 135 PZ lens. That's a little more interesting to me. Once again, that lens is kind of pricey, and I already have those focal lengths covered from some different avenues, and probably foremost is this very competent 24 to 120 lens, which I have two of these, and I just shoot that all the time. So I'm not sure that I really would need a PZ lens for anything. So even though I'm intrigued by those lenses, both of them are going to be passes for me. In fact, I'm shooting with the Nikon Z8 and a 24-to-120 lens on it right now at this very moment. Nikon has 2 new box cameras out, or I guess I should say it's part of their Red acquisition, and they have put a Z mount on them, which people have been waiting for. It seems like the right move and the smart move, but the Komodo and the Raptor, both of these, they're quite pricey. $7,000 for the Komodo, $30,000 for the Raptor. Those are box cameras that require you to put some kind of a screen on them and to do a build out around them in order to use them. And it's not my swim lane. I'm not going there. I guess the last thing that Nikon has recently announced is the P1100, and I almost said P1000. You can take that as a Freudian slip. The 1100, it's kind of an interesting anecdote. I already made the joke about a week ago on the channel that if you give a rube $100, what are they going to do with it? Well, I put $100 deposit down on that camera, and here's the sequence of events. At some point in the evening, and I think it was a B&H B&H email. I saw that the P1100 had been released, and then the next morning I was looking around on Nikon's website, and it was quite early the next morning because I tend to get up early around here, but the landing page for the tech specs didn't have the technical specs on it. It had kind of a boilerplate web page, and so I debated whether to whether to wait for the specs, or it's like, what the heck, $100 at Kenmore will hold my place in line if this turns out to be a popular camera. So I got busy doing other things, and I didn't think much about the camera. And then later that morning, I went on Kenmore's website, saw a listing for it, and I put a deposit down on it. So I'm like, okay, that'll hold my place in line. And then I guess it was either later that day or the next day, I actually sat down and I said, I'm going to scour what I can find out now about the specs of the P1100. And, Nikon had filled out their website at this point, and I was able to get good information, and the good information wasn't very satisfying. So I don't think I'll be following through with the P1100 purchase. Even though I have the deposit down, Kenmore doesn't really care. In the past, I've put money down to hold my place in line, changed my mind about whatever it was, and they'll just move it to something else you're buying. So I got a $100 leg up on the next thing I buy at Kenmore, because when those cameras come in, it looks like they've upgraded the USB port on it, and they did a couple other things with the software, but I could not find out at the time that I was doing the research what the processor is in that camera, and that's the brain of the camera, and I want to know more about the processor. We know it's probably some kind of an X speed, but what number? And the other thing is, of course, the sensor is pretty small, that 1/2.3, and they've added some programming to that camera, and I'm sure people who like the concept of the P1000 will like the P1100. I got nothing against it, but it's not a purchase I feel like I can follow through with at this point. Too much else going on, and too many places to spend your money, really, when you get right down to it. The last thing that I'll mention is the 35 1.8, which I had said about a month ago I was getting rid of, the Z S-line lens 35 1.8. I decided that I wanted to hang on to that lens, and at some point we're going to test that lens with the Z50ii, and I think 35 1.8, it becomes kind of a 52 millimeter lens when you put it on an APS-C camera, and that's part of the lens testing that I have in mind. We saw last week that I was using the 14-30 on the Z50ii and really liking it. I still need to do the 24-120, which that's f4 straight all the way through, same as the 14-30, and I think these could be two good candidates. I think that one 3 35 1.8 could also be a really good player for the Z50ii. But the thing is, that's got to all settle out. I've got to do those lenses, test each one, test some of the output against the others, and you know how that goes on the channel. That takes time, and over the coming weeks I'll get to it. And eventually what will shake out is what is the proper lens to just have on the Z50ii most of the time. That's what I'm trying to discover. And the wife, of course, has already declared her vote. She says, why not park the 28-400 on it? Stop worrying about swapping lenses back and forth and all that stuff. But the core of the program tonight is WANDRD camera bags. And I'm going to get up here and risk maybe the camera not focusing properly right away. But this is the WANDRD 6-liter, and we just bought it. And I've had, as you know on the channel, the WANDRD 9-liter, and you can see these guys size next to each other. You know, on the surface you can see a little bit of difference, but trust me, you know, this one is 50% larger per specs, and it feels like it. What did I do with these guys? Well, this was bought predominantly for the Z50ii. But what happened, well, let me scoot these lenses out of the way. What happened is I started toying around with cameras, and the next thing I know, I had put the Z8 with the 28-400 on it and parked it in this bag. Now, it's got a minimal kit in here, just a spare battery, you know, a peak camera strap, and there's not really room for much else if you put the Z8 in here. But you know, it's not hard to zip and unzip, and as soon as I say that, I guess it'll give me trouble, but it's in there and it's really snug, but you can't fit a lot of other stuff in here. But I'm thinking, you know, as a bag I can throw over my shoulder when I'm walking dogs, or when we're not really going out specifically for, you know, a session out in the field with cameras. I can just grab this and carry it along, and it's unobtrusive, and it's kind of small, and it does the job of keeping the Z8 from clanking around and from being seen when you don't really need it to be seen when you're not using it. So this was bought for the Z52, but I'm actually auditioning it with the Z8 and the 28-400 parked on it. Now, next item, you probably guessed, we've done a switcheroo. Put the smaller camera in the bigger bag, and the bigger camera in the small bag. So here we have the Z50 and Z52 rather, and I'm trying to get the ceramic microphone cord is stuck in there, but here's the Z52, and that's the Nikon 100-400 lens in there, and you can see that you know, this is a high quality lens, and we've parked the Z52 on here, which is an APS-C sensor camera. It needs a little bit of help, so I put the high quality lens on it, and it goes right into this bag so easily, and I've got room for the ceramic shotgun mic that I use out in the field to just tuck right in there. And with this setup, you really don't appear to have room for like a lens or anything else in there. And I'll hold that up again. You can see the camera with that lens on it pretty much takes up the whole bag, except the ceramic can just be put in here because it's got its own padded pouch, and it can be put in on top. But you've got room in the zippered part here for extra battery, camera strap, whatever, and this is a good-to-go set just like it is, but the alternate, the swap out, if you don't need to carry the Z52 with a long lens on it, it will fit two lenses, two regular size lenses. I've put the 24-120 on it, and in its own you know, neoprene bag, put this in alongside it. There's room for the two of them. So you got different possibilities with this configuration, and it's still a very reasonable sized bag to have over your shoulder. So I'm going to be experimenting with these combos, and the wife's already weighed in on the Z52. She's like, why don't you just take the 28-400 off of the Z8, put it on the Z52. That's your one lens for the Z52. But I have to trot along and come to this conclusion myself by testing all of the lenses. So that's what we'll be doing over the next few weeks. And I bought the Z52, as I mentioned on the channel, primarily as a studio camera, but I want to test it out in the field. In fact, the wife was off at an event yesterday. She didn't want to carry the Z9 with her, and she took the Z52. And the camera really did well. It's not output that we would use for the channel. It was something else that she was out shooting, just kind of informally. And I thought that the footage looked really good. But anyhow, we have to go through all of this stuff systematically, and at some point, the testing ends with putting the 600 6.3 lens on the Z52 and seeing what it can do with that. So anyway, I think we've about run through it tonight, and I do want to thank everybody for showing up, and we sure hope to see you again soon in another video. So till then, take care.